Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the next edition of Putting the Human in Technology. A bit of a different twist today. I'm talking to my first sort of startup founder on the podcast. So I'd like to welcome Wilddan Rosén. Wilddan, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Gatin. Thank you very much for inviting me. It's a pleasure.
I'm really excited to talk to you. So, Wilddan and I met through the Microsoft Startup Founders Hub, and Wilddan's business is trying to make use of that program to help grow his business, which is Swipetask, and Wilddan's the CEO of that business. So, Wilddan, kick things off. If you can just tell us a little bit about yourself and your business and what you're doing.
Yeah, perhaps slightly unorthodox background and sort of story because of I'm originally from Sweden, and literally one fine day I literally read an article about Singapore in a business magazine, and there and then at that moment I decided, okay, I'm moving to Singapore. I was about 18 years old or 19. I had to finish my military service, etc. And 8 days after that, I was on a train to Asia. First boat to Finland, and then so that's how I arrived in Asia and Singapore very, very long time ago, decades ago. And I worked for the first 10, 20 years, both as an entrepreneur, but also in the corporate world. And that gave me quite a unique experience. I worked in Singapore, but also in Brunei. I worked in India. I worked a bit in Hong Kong, Korea, the Philippines. And I basically started thinking very much as an entrepreneur, even when I was in the corporate world, and the companies I worked for, they liked it. They liked somebody who was really embedded in Asia and going from ground up. And secondly, I have a certain aptitude towards sales and marketing, so I could kind of swing different propositions, I would say. And I made a reasonably successful corporate career intermingled with my entrepreneurial life. And then during this path, I realized that managing what I at that time was thinking of sort of distributed workforce, again, because I was across the region, working with different cultures, different skills levels, and being very sales driven, I needed some kind of, you could say, assisting software tool, which were not available at that point in time, to manage a distributed workforce and really drive by the numbers. And keep in mind that I just also had come out of my military service, so it was also quite performance driven, you could say. And therefore, it was all coming together into a concept. And the initial concept, the company was then finally incorporated in 2015. And the initial concept...
So this is Swipetask now, yeah?
Swipetask, correct.
Right, okay.
And the initial concept was actually to have a tool for homeowners to manage their domestic helpers. Because I saw the gap between homeowners not being able to communicating and developing a lot of frustrations with the domestic helpers that came slightly uneducated in many cases, and also with language barrier. So I was thinking of a software tool to empower the maid agencies to stay in contact and create continuous business with the homeowners, empowering the maid and basically make everybody happy. And by doing that, we also would not need to build a sales organization. The maid agencies would basically sell our solution. The origins of the company was called maidtrainer.com.
Okay.
And then after some time, I decided to go to early stage investment companies. And I said, I'm developing this task management tool to manage workforces. Initially, our first use case is for maids, domestic helpers. And the feedback I got from these various investment companies was managing a workforce digitally and maids, we don't understand this. There's no such thing. And that was 2015. And here we are sort of 9 years later, 10 years later, and we know what has happened. So
it's morphed in that time though, hasn't it? That's not really the focus. That's not really the focus now.
Today,
my
obviously,
understanding.
we have nothing to do with made whatsoever, but the platform of managing a distributed workforce is exactly the same.
Gotcha.
What we do as a company is we are a B2B solution, and our corporate clients are any company, you could say, which has a distributed workforce. I call it non-desk bound. Coming back to where I was myself prior to starting Swipetask, I worked remotely. Now the whole world want to work remotely in a distributed fashion, and many times without a desk. So we cover any form of task. We embed into tasks, and as a standalone proposition as well, training. And in many cases, you need to accompany task with checklist. And you also need to accompany task with some form of quality checking or audit. So there are this kind of component as well. And then again, because of distributed workforces, you typically also want to take time and attendance. And then we are using facial recognition and GPS. After that, we have added on many other modules, many other verticals that we are addressing, but that's all at the core of what we are doing.
Brilliant. Okay, cool. So it's managing employees remotely, managing distributing teams, making sure they've got their need and they're empowered to do what they need to do. In terms of technology and data, then, how has that shaped how you've developed your products? How is technology is clearly a key component. Can you just explain a little bit more about how technology and data fit into this?
Yeah.
This framework of your solution and the key role it plays in helping you deliver what you deliver.
Yeah. So there are, first of all, we can talk about the sort of transition. Typically, obviously, if we talk about 10 years ago, you managed a lot via Excel or whatever spreadsheets, technology you had. And then the initial concept was to target what we call the lowest ranking man in the organization. But then many companies, they realize that the minute you target the lowest ranking, whoever that is, a cleaner, engineer, or whoever, then it comes complexities with the mobile plan, with the device itself, etc., etc. And pretty quickly, companies basically pivoted to us and said, never mind, let's focus on leaders and supervisors, site managers, etc. So we went from the lowest ranking guy to kind of one step up, and then we moved from there. So from site managers, we go to operation manager, and then we go to the level of our client's client. So let's say if you have a facility management company, they will report to a global facility manager like JLL or whatever. So we basically covered the whole chain, from the lowest ranking guy right to the end. And recently we have also come up with a municipality system where even the citizen can communicate with task, create task into municipality to the contractor down to the supervisor or site manager or zone manager, the zone manager down to the team leader, etc., etc. Okay, so that's one very important component. We are mobile first. You could really say, in order to manage this, you need to have a very good mobile application and simple to use. But you also need to orchestrate things from an admin portal, obviously the corporate, where you create templates, where you set up the task, you create your organization, etc. You set up all your KPIs. So there is kind of like a heavy setup to be done initially, but fortunately we have gone all through templates, so it's very, very fast. We typically will tell clients that we brag within 2 hours we can have you up and running, which basically means we can literally use templates to create impact within 2 hours. In reality, implication or implementations often take longer time. Anyway, coming back, the rest is all then exposed in the mobile. And then the magic, coming back to the data question, the magic is then obviously, why do we have the swipe task name? Because we want it as simple as swipe. I can actually create reports in the field within 10 seconds. That's basically our benchmark. So I can create value for the company and for the clients of the company within 10 seconds using everything in the mobile to create valuable reports. And that's where the data is. Now, to spin on the data, I can also tell you that we are actually kind of like dissatisfied as far as our history of the company versus what is the use of the data today. And that is not because we have not had the tools. I mean, even now with Microsoft, etc., obviously there are a lot of fabulous data management tools and analytics tools, but the clients have kind of been slow with the concept of creating standardized data sets for different sites, different groups within the company. And therefore, the full power of the data has not come through yet in many cases, surprisingly. Now, the pull is actually coming from our client's client today. And obviously, with everything that has happened in the last 1 year, etc., on AI, etc., now we see a lot of demand for valuable data. And then we kind of have to come back to the clients and say, yeah, now let's look at the data quality. Let's look at standardization. Let's look at how you have the ability to benchmark one site against another, etc., etc. So it is surprisingly, even though we are basically a data company, in terms of the real, from our point of view, the real benefits from the data is still fairly modest on a scale. Let's say call it 1 to 10. We are today probably sort of at a 5, 6, and we should be up at a 9.
Right. Okay. So you just to rephrase that, just so it makes sense. So it makes sense to me, and you can tell me if I'm wrong. So your product is and service is ultimately driven by technology and data, and you're using quite a lot of data for your ultimate end clients. But you see an opportunity to take that further and deliver more value for them through your product. I think that's,
and hence our approach to the startup program, looking at AI and connecting with you. Yeah, so we have, yes, some demand from the clients, but we also need to basically show our clients what all their data can really do. And yeah, exactly. So that's where we are at now. In terms of the data generation, it's really gone exponentially. Before, and we are talking about now a lot of images, reports which will come with more, you could almost say, text-based, more basic. Today, they are in many cases, just an example, we had one client who were initially looking at reports which would be generating maximum 50 images, and that would be extreme. Most of the reports would be generating sort of 20 images. That same company today, their average is somewhere around 140, 150 images per report. So you can imagine, and all those images are actually being synced in real time in the field, which basically means that it's really on steroid, you could say, because the users in the field, they might upload the images and suddenly they delete them, they change them, they edit them, etc. So it's really, really demanding in terms of behind the scene what our data storage and processing capabilities have gone.
Okay, so I guess that might be a nice segue into the sort of next question around challenges in terms of like building your product, building your tool, dealing with that sort of data churn, data change, data quality. What have been the sort of biggest challenges you faced, and have you overcome them, or what's the plan for solving them going forward?
I'll be very transparent with you, and I think the reason why I'll be that is because it can be a good sharing for other startups and entrepreneurs. Even with my background, as I mentioned, in terms of the corporate world and working in different industries and different verticals, I'm not a tech person. I'm not a developer. I don't know how to do software coding. I am a businessman who have taken on the role of basically product manager. and being the interface between obviously our tech team and the clients. So coming up with conceptually, what are we developing? Now, having said that, when we develop our initial platform, we obviously didn't know whether we were going to survive as a startup. So we did not future-proof our initial platform, and we have had to go sort of from one platform to another, which has been a little bit challenging. Basically, some of our open source components were sort of end of life, and we have now, fortunately, we have in the end actually managed it very well, and the clients haven't been hurt. But behind the scene, it's been challenging to sort of go from one platform and doing that upgrading, that transition in a very smooth fashion, without compromising your service quality.
What was the platforms you've moved from and to, Wilddan? That's probably be interesting for people listening in.
Yeah, again, rather, I really, I don't know all the components specifically, so I would rather not say.
That's okay.
And secondly, the key point that I'm trying to drive is really the challenge that we have experienced, and also what I think that companies should be very mindful of, which is obviously today we can work. I mean, the word agile has been around for a long time. We want to be agile, but we also want to work with microservices, and we want to have something that is robust, not just literally for the next 2 years. We need to work backwards from the future. Yeah.
If I can ask you this question then, given what you've just said, and that being one of the challenges in moving, but you managed to move successfully, would you have done anything different when you were starting out in terms of your platform?
I would say that already think of step 2. It's essentially you have the dilemma as a startup. You really don't know for how long you will last. You don't know whether you're going to have clients. So you sort of just plan your MVP, and that's kind of, but you really need to plan for success. I think if you plan for success, you plan not only your MVP and first stage. And I mean, obviously, as an entrepreneur, I'm reading a lot of tech news, and it always talks about this, come to MVP. Yeah, I agree with that, and start deploying and start getting paying clients and feedback. But lo and behold, if you actually commercialize that product, what comes next? That's the point that I'm making. You need to have that game plan already, and we did not fully have that.
Right, and I suspect it's good chatting to you, but I suspect quite a lot of startups are in that boat. It's like they've got an idea and they want to take it to market, and they worry about what's next when they've had that initial success. But I guess that's where things can possibly tail off, because what comes next perhaps needs to be in place to keep the momentum going around the growth of the business, I guess.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. So, well, that's really insightful, and I'm sure lots of the startup people watching this will probably hopefully keep that in mind. So in terms of you've been entrepreneurial for a very long time. And you've already told us how you've seen technology and data influencing your business going forward. How do you see technology and data influencing the future of startups and the future business growth? How do you see that playing out?
I think that especially now in the last, literally, I just say year, in terms of AI coming into play. Now you have, I think, sort of staring in the headlight, wondering what to do, paralyzed. You have let's just deploy something very quickly. Doesn't matter what it is. We need AI, and we need to be able to put it on the website, and we need to be able to tell our clients we are in AI. And I think that to answer that question, what will be the impact of technology, and how should we sort of prep ourselves and plan for it? Our approach has always been quite contrarian. If everybody does that, that's exactly what we don't want to do. That's one thing. The second thing is that client relationships will still be around, no matter how much technology you have in the future. At the end of the day, somebody need to be able to look you in the eye and basically say, we trust you and we know you're going to be able to deliver this. So I don't see that moving away for quite some time, if ever. And the third thing is also that we, like, I know for sure, I'm not the only one to say it. You know, technology is really just the byproduct. It's in what we are delivering. The value is not the technology. So having said that, I think that with AI and with the advancement of AI and with the advancement of other technologies, which are of course very relevant for us as well, GIS technologies. I mean, there are a lot of technologies that are relevant to our industry. We have to stay extremely close to the client to understand them, number one. Number two, we have to have products which are not, they can have a future component, but they must have a realistic, real component sitting today. The value cannot be based on promises that is sort of, oh, in 6 months. No, either you deliver, and the third thing, which is kind of linked to how we also work, we always say that if we have a new client, we typically, if you have a SaaS product, and sorry if I'm digressing, I hope
it's okay. It's absolutely fine. Yeah, it's fine.
Typically, when you say you have a SaaS product, you want to go for a global market, and therefore your product should be basically standardized. You should be able to download it anywhere and install it. Off you go. We have said, and you will notice even if you go to our website, you really don't have a commercial side to it, and the reason is that we sell direct at this point in time. Now we are open to distribution arrangement, partnership arrangements, but that has not been our priority in the past. Now it's becoming, because we have reached a certain level. So we took the approach, the complexity of this solution should be that we can only deliver about 70 to 80% out of the box. Unlike typical SaaS, where it should be 100% out of the box. We go 70 to 80, and then we tell the client the remaining 20, 30%, it is based on configuration / in some cases, customization. Why? For the simple reason, we do not believe that the cookie cutter approach works for such complex solutions that we are delivering. They don't work. We know that, hearing most of our clients, they have previously been with Oracle, SAP, and other very big names, and they have basically got so entrenched with such heavy systems, which are just causing them basically to slow down. So we work with swiftness. Speed is part of our sort of signum, and it means that those 70-80% is configured. It's like hand in glove, tightly to the client. The client gets exactly what they want, and we get long-term commitment from our clients. And that is the reason why we have not had to do any marketing so far. It's all been word of mouth introductions and inbound.
No, fab. And clearly that's your approach. Have you got any plans to change that going forward? It seems like you're reasonably successful. Well, not reasonably. Your business has been successful taking that model, and is that the continued plan going forward?
I think that gradually we're going to dial down on that percentage so we will get to a point, or we will go with some kind of solution which is sort of downloadable anywhere globally. And that obviously is going to be sort of on the lower scale of complexity. So you start with this and sort of a premium kind of proposition. So we will go to that path. But I don't think I would be sitting here talking to you today if we would have gone that path from the beginning. We have basically managed to build a business on pretty strong foundation, which I think has benefited us, obviously, also through COVID, et cetera, et cetera. And I think that's kind of my humble advice to anybody who is endeavoring in the SaaS field.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. That's amazing. And the advice bit is interesting because we've come to the last question. And as I said, I always give the guests a choice on which question they get asked for the sort of fun closing one. And you went for, what advice would you give your younger self just starting out in business? And I'm sure there'll be people that want to know the answer to that now.
Yeah, and funny enough, I recall when I was working in the corporate world, and I was very ambitious. I want to get promoted. I want to get more salary, etc. And my wise bosses at that time was like, be patient, just pay your dues, work your years. And I think I was not willing to listen too much, and I was pretty impatient. Now, that can transition into entrepreneurship. And so I think that's where the advice is, that you should be a bit impatient for sure, but you will also notice that the businesses that survive and the businesses that I think eventually thrive, they are built on a couple of very strong foundations, and those foundations come with paying your dues. They cannot be sort of impatiently orchestrated. Either you have a very strong buy signal proposition and you deliver the product, but again, then you need to craft your product, obviously according to those exacting requirements, or yourself, you need to have that commitment and tenacity and patience to keep on learning and keep on hustling until you have reached that point where you find the real traction. So you could almost associate it with cars. I come from Sweden, as you know. We are used to winter driving, and if you ever slide off the road and try to get back on the road, if you're very impatient and just press the pedal, you're going to end up spinning and you're not going to get out. If you take it a little bit slower, you put some sand on the ground and you push the car, etc., etc. There are various techniques. You can actually get out. So I think that's kind of like, the anecdotal wisdom that I can give.
So yeah, be a little bit impatient, but know when to pause and keep going and keep trying and keep going and just do it. I guess. Brilliant, awesome. Thank you, Wilddan. That is the end of the show, and that's my last question. Thank you for sharing your advice and guidance. I'm sure there'll be startups and entrepreneurs out there that would gladly listen.
Yeah, and of course, anybody is ever free to contact us. I mean, we got both phone number and email on our website, and
which is swipetask.com. Swipetask.com.
Yeah.
And if you're watching this, there'll be a blog post with links and stuff. You can go and find Wilddan on LinkedIn and find the company website too. So awesome. Go and look them up if you want to tap into Wilddan and his expertise. Wilddan, it's been a pleasure. No doubt you and I will chat again soon.
Yeah.
But thank you very much for being a guest on my show. It's been really great, and I'll talk to you soon.
Our pleasure. Take care. Thank you very much.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.